If you've ever driven down Baxter Avenue in the original Highlands, you've probably driven right by Eastern Cemetery, one of the oldest cemeteries in Louisville, originally opening up back in 1843, at a time when its location would have been considered to be on the very outskirts of the city. But did you know that it was at the center of one of the biggest cemetery scandals in US history back in the early 1990s and has been closed and abandoned ever since? That's right, folks. Back in 1989, 146 years after opening, it was discovered that the cemetery had been digging up old graves dating as far back as the 1850s, disposing of the remains and reselling those grave plots over and over again for years. There were even reports that came out that some of those bodies had been sold to medical schools around the area as cadavers, and that certain graves in the cemetery had up to 6 bodies buried in one plot in a mass burial style. Unbeknownst to the families of the deceased, of course. When the news broke, it was estimated that over 48,000 people were buried in recycled grave sites there over the years. And even more bodies than that had been lost to make way for them. It was all a big profit scheme. Reuse the graves, pocket the money, and repeat. And what made it even more tragic is that Eastern Cemetery was known as a more affordable option for working class families who couldn't afford to bury their dead in other cemeteries. And those were the people that were taken advantage of most. Back in the 1920s, the cemetery even built Louisville's first crematorium, a method of incinerating bodies to ash instead of burying them, which later would become part of the scandal as it made it that much easier for them to quietly dispose of the old remains. After the scandal was exposed, it became national news, ultimately leading to the closure and abandonment of the cemetery. And despite multiple indictments, no one involved ever went to prison, with most of those mass and reused gravesites still lying exactly as they were when the injustice happened all those years ago. And so it sits quietly to this day, abandoned for more than 30 years, with its buildings crumbling and the headstones growing more and more worn year after year, with all of those betrayed families of the deceased still with no answers and still with no justice.